Hey there, everybody. It's Joric. Welcome back to my channel. Another live stream number 2. So I'm hoping that I can get in the habit of doing these weekly so that I can engage a little better with subscribers, as well as when there's new followers, hopefully they will subscribe and become a part of my channel and my community. So welcome and thank you for taking the time to view this. This video and this live stream is going to be talking about Portugal and bureaucracy that is Portugal. Some of the government processes that you're going to have to live with and work through if you're looking to move here and live here. Now, when you hear the term bureaucracy, I think it is immediately looked at as a negative term. And all it really means is the government processes. And I'm going to hit on some of the pain points that we've experienced in 3 years of being here. But I'm also going to hit on some of the things that I think are no different than any other country. So hopefully it will not throw you off, because oftentimes you can see videos or read articles about how bad Portugal's bureaucracy is and why would anyone move there, and it takes forever to get things done. In some cases, that's accurate, but in some cases, that's false. I will start off by saying I have a friend from Denver, Colorado that is going to be moving and becoming a resident in Portugal. He started the process a couple of years ago in Spain, and based upon the bureaucracy and the amount of things that were happening there, he decided to pursue Portugal because he said it's Spain light. If people in Portugal thought that the bureaucracy was bad, it's several times worse in Spain. So, what you're going to be involved with if you happen to think about moving here and living in Portugal, I'll go through the good and the bad. I don't know if there's too much ugly. One of the ugly things actually got cleared up earlier this year, and I'll hit that near the end. So, if you're looking to move here, the first thing that you're going to want to consider getting is called the NIF, which is your personal tax ID. That is something that you can do from your home country. You do not have to be here to acquire it, although you do need a legal representative, an attorney of some sort, maybe an accountant. There are several people out there that can help you get that. So you don't have to be here to get that. Same thing with a bank account. If you're going to be moving here, you want a bank account. For those of you that have been looking at the D7 visa, it's one of the requirements for being here is a bank account, and with a certain amount of money, financial means that is in that account. And then also property. If you're thinking about investing in Portugal, if you're looking to do the D7, you don't have to invest in property. You would at least need a year-long rental agreement. But more and more people are considering investing here based upon the housing values in their home countries. They're getting more bang for their buck, so more are considering buying versus renting here. But the bureaucracy as far as getting your NIF, it's very simple. If you're here, you can walk in, and I would say within a couple of hours have it. Sometimes it takes less, sometimes it takes more, but I think that's par for the course. Opening a bank account, we did that in person. That took about an hour and a half. It was really more signing forms than anything else, but it was the typical show your passport, show your home address, fund the account, and away you go. That was not difficult. Um, if you're going to come to Portugal, and if you have made your trips, hopefully you've made several trips to realize or make a decision that you're committed, and this is really where you want to be for at least a short period of time, or maybe for retirement, start the process before you get here. And that should be a no-brainer, but I'm giving you basically the highlight at the beginning of this live stream. If you take nothing away from this video, start in your home country long before you get on a plane and come to Portugal. And the reason I say that is in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2019, even 2020, right before the pandemic, there were several people that we've met that moved here. They came here. They didn't start anything in their home country, no process at all, no visa process. They just came here as a tourist. Once they landed, then they started, and began their process and then tried to apply for an appointment, apply for a residence permit, the D7 visa after the fact. And in almost all of those cases, some of those people are still not residents yet. They're still going through hoops. In a couple of cases, we know one Canadian, one American couple, they actually had to go back to their home country, stay there for several weeks, get the process started there, have an appointment at a Portuguese consulate there, and then come back. So it behooves you, if you're going to come here, however you're going to be here for more than the 90 days as a tourist, start that process, find out where the Portuguese consulate is in your home country. In some countries, there may be multiple consulates, and find out what the process is so that you can get in the queue and have your appointments in your home country done. So you're sort of halfway there. So when you land, that is the next part. Once you come and you land here, as soon as you get here, within a day or two, I would go to SEF, the SEF, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Go to their website and get an appointment. Either contact them by email or by phone. They are hard to get a hold of, I will say that, but get your in line for an appointment. And I would say take whichever appointment they will give you. So for example, we're in Lisbon, Portugal, so in the middle of the mainland. My wife's appointment was here in Lisbon. It was about 3 months after we moved. My appointment was 4 months after we moved, and it was out in Terceira in the Azores. And that was the first available appointment. If I didn't take that appointment, it would have been June of 2020. And oddly enough, in June of 2020 was the middle of the pandemic, and SEF wasn't open. So who knows what my status, how long it would have taken. So take the first appointment. If that means you have to get a rental car, you have to get a train or bus to go to a different town or a different area, even if you're going to Madeira or the Azores, take the first one because it may be months before you get the second one. That's where I think the Portugal bureaucracy sometimes hits people first and hits people the wrong way, because it can take 3 months in the best of circumstances. It can take 5 or 6 months if there's a backlog. And I can tell you that the government agency, SEF, who's in charge of this process, they're also the ones that you see at passport control when you come in and out of the airport. They're going to be transitioning at the end of the year to another agency. We don't know what that is. We hope it will be a better process. But in the meantime, they're still working through thousands of UK citizens who were grandfathered residency or came pre-Brexit. And with that, there was an agreement with Portugal that they would kind of be fast-tracked into some residency. Thousands of them are still waiting for the last of their residency requirements to be fulfilled on the Portugal end of things. Also, due to the war in the Ukraine, there are thousands of refugees coming here, and they're taking priority. Portugal wants to be able to get them some temporary residency. So because of that, they're pushing some other people aside and trying to get them in as fast and as expeditiously as possible. So as soon as you land, contact SEF, get your appointment, because it's not going to happen in a week or two. It'll be a few months in the best of circumstances. And then once you do that, I would highly recommend trying to contact an attorney here in Portugal to help with the Portuguese side of things. You may have someone that helps you in your home country, but I would recommend working with someone here to help with some of the nuances. You may not speak the language. The attorneys here will speak Portuguese. And if you're working with someone that deals with immigration, they're going to know the ins and outs of SEF, how your application should look, making sure, double checking and triple checking that all your paperwork is in order. That's something that I think I fell in love with the Portuguese bureaucracy. I'll say this tongue in cheek, because two people could go on 2 different days, have the same paperwork, and get 2 different answers from the representative at the same office. So sometimes it just depends on the mood of the people and what they're looking for. when my wife went through her process here in Lisbon, her appointment, our attorney was with us. She had all of her documentation. In less than 30 minutes, she was out of there and within 3 weeks received her residence card. My appointment was a month later in Tessira, which is in the Azores. My appointment was about 2.5 hours long. They went through passport stamps in my passport that were several years ago, long before we even considered coming to Portugal. They were asking questions that had nothing to do with the application at all. So it was a very different experience. But after 2.5 to 3 hours, was able to get out of there. And then we were into the start of the pandemic. So it took me about 7 weeks to get my residence card. But I want you to know that just take a deep breath and be patient, because CEF is one of the major pain points that you're going to experience when you're dealing with becoming a resident, either on a temporary basis or if you've been here 5 years on a permanent basis. They're the ones that just forward, I think because of lack of staffing, they just don't have enough people, and Portugal's become popular not only for people to retire here from countries, but also as a refuge from countries that are dealing with conflict. So you just have to take that as it comes. And if you want to be here, if you're committed to being here, you have to live through some of those processes. Now, I'm also going to touch on before you move or while you move to Portugal. Some of you have asked, well, what'd you do with all of your furniture? Did you box it up? Did you get a travel company, a logistics company to box up stuff in your house and move it? Well, we went from a 2,000 square foot home to a 650 square foot apartment. So we just didn't have the room. We did bring some things with us, things that we could bring on the airplane. We did have a crate, but that crate was very small. When the movers came, they said, this is it. But we did have something. And it's very important, if you are bringing everything from your life to Portugal, or if you are bringing things that are over and above what you're going to be carrying with on an airplane. So you're going to have an international mover of some sort move that. You're going to want to take, I'll use these, the manifest, a list of all of the things that you have in that cargo container. You're going to want to make sure that they're all written down. And when you have your appointment at the Portuguese consulate in your home country, you're going to want to take this document with you. And you're going to want, some of them notarize it. Some of them will do a certified copy. It's called different names in different countries. But it's very important that this manifest of all of your items that's being shipped to Portugal is certified or notarized by the Portuguese embassy. And the reason why is that if it is not, it will sit on a loading dock here somewhere in Greater Portugal, and you will owe customs duties and taxes on that. So it's your own stuff, but you'll have to pay taxes to get it. We've talked to probably a dozen couples since we moved here that didn't realize that this needed to be done. They decided to move some or all of their possessions, and then they found out, wow, it cost $5,000 to get those possessions, or $10,000 in one case to get their own stuff out of the shipping yard. So that is very important. I would say, knowing this, we tried to reduce what we were going to bring anyway, and made a decision when we purchased our apartment that we were going to furnish it here locally, with the exception of we brought our bed with us, some household kitchen items, and some gadgets. There are clothes that we didn't bring on the plane. Again, small stuff. But we didn't want to have a situation where, let's say for some reason, we lost our paperwork in this manifest that was notarized. We didn't want to owe thousands of dollars just to get our stuff. If it was a couple hundred, we could have lived with that. But it's a very important thing to think about. And that's not a knock. That's got nothing to do with the Portuguese bureaucracy. It's just, if you're moving here, it is something that you need to know to have. So with this live stream, and there's more content coming out about this particular thing. So I want to make sure you know in advance, so you don't have a gotcha when you move here and you get this big tax bill going, God, I just need my stuff from San Francisco or Los Angeles or Phoenix. What's going on? I want to make sure that you understand that this manifest, signed, certified, notarized by the Portugal Embassy, very, very important. Okay, so you're here, you just landed, you have your CEF appointment. You might be doing a D7 visa, which is more of a retirement visa. You may be on a work visa, which is a different process entirely. Regardless of what visa you're on, most likely you're going to want to apply for health services. You're going to need to. It's called SNS. And each district within Portugal and in Lisbon here, there are several districts, locations where you go and you apply for it. It's something, again, it took maybe an hour, and most of it was just waiting in line, showing documentation, had to show proof of residency. And then once I gave them that, it took maybe 7 working days. We received something in the mail that is, here is your SNS location, here's your SNS healthcare number. So that's something that it was very easy. I thought the process was as easy as it got. There was nothing, it was pretty straightforward. There was no pain point at all with that. Next, depending on your situation, you may or may not need to apply for Social Security here in Portugal. So I'll give you an example. My wife works out of Portugal, so she was set up with Social Security. I do not have a Social Security number with Portugal. All of my business dealings and revenue and things like that come only through the US and to and from the US. So because of that, her process for the Social Security, she was able to do some of it online. And then this was pre-pandemic, so things have changed a bit. But then after that, she did have to go in and set an appointment. It took 15 minutes. There was no one online, and they checked some documents, and then they gave her the green light, and she was ready to go. Many people now can apply online. If you are here on a work visa, your employer will do the legwork for you. If you're here as a digital nomad, a freelancer, you're working on behalf of yourself, you can go online and apply too. If you're doing a retirement, so a D7 visa, that's your mode for being here in Portugal. You can also do it online, although it's mixed because I've heard from about half the people said, yeah, we started it online and there was no issue. Another, didn't matter when they moved either, said that they had to go in to have an actual appointment. I haven't asked personal questions to know who could do it online with retirement and who had to go in, but just to let you know, you might have to do a combination of both of those for your Social Security. Again, if you have nothing that's going to be contributed to Portugal Social Security, then that's not something that you have to worry about. Next is the renewal process. So you're here and you're coming up, you look at the back of your resident card going, we're going to be renewing here shortly. You can go through the portal at CEF, their website, and start the renewal process. One of the silver linings of the pandemic is the process prior to the pandemic. You had to make an appointment, go in person. And that was typical Portuguese bureaucracy or any country's bureaucracy. Wait in line, then wait. Because of the pandemic, one of the things they did is they helped streamline and they opened up online renewals. So we were able to renew online, and hopefully, unless something changes, the next time we're eligible to renew, we'll be able to do that online. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that when we're ready to renew our residence card again, it will be a new agency. It will no longer be CEF, allegedly. It will be something else. So as that happens, you're probably going to see videos from me as well as other content creators this fall and winter telling you, hey, if you're coming to Portugal or if you're here, here's the new company, here's the new process. so that you have an understanding of what's going on. So you're up to date, because we need to learn from our end what we need to do to be able to keep renewing our residency until we're ready for permanent residency if we go that route. Okay, so Dan, thank you so much for checking it out, and I hope I'm not boring you and putting people to sleep. The idea is, I know I have a voice that I can do that, but hopefully there's enough good information here that you can glean from it and take what I'm providing, as well as other content providers, to give you an accurate picture of what you're going to run into if coming into Portugal, both the good and the bad. So I'm going to hit driver's license. The pain in my backside, the biggest, I'll say, pain point being in Portugal. So what we were told back in the US is, if you were to do your driver's license exchange, you had up to 2 years to do it, being once you got to Portugal. There's also 6 months from when you got your residence card, you should have sent in your documentation to be able to get your driver's license exchange without having to take a test. And the test is the written test, which is in Portuguese, and the driving test, which is also in Portuguese. So we wanted to try to avoid that, because we hadn't learned enough Portuguese. We feel like we'd fail, not so much the driving test, but the written. So we had our documents apostilled. We turned everything in time. We had everything followed step by step by step. And every month I would email the agency that's in charge of it. No response, no response, no response. So 6 months, no response. 1 year, no response. 18 months, no response. 2 years. I said, it's been 2 years. What's going on? And by all accounts, everything I read, all the documentation that we turned in 2 years prior is now not valid, because everything has expired as far as what Portugal wants to be able to do that exchange. About 2 weeks after the 2 year mark, we get, sorry, this information's invalid. You have to start the process again. So that means that we would have to fly back to our home state in the US, get our driver's license apostilled if it's still valid, and then fly back and start the process. So we decided we're not going to go that route. Our driver's license in our home state is still valid for a couple of years. So we're good on that front. We can legally drive. So this was the biggest pain on my backside. What's a silver lining is the president, as well as some of the other people in government, this year decided that if your driver's license is less than 15 years since it was issued, and if you are under the age of 60, you can drive with your home country's license without any issue here in Portugal. There are some exceptions. It's not all countries, but I would say the vast majority of countries. I did a video on it, and if you check it out, I would say most countries fall under this protection where you can drive, again, as long as it's a valid driver's license, hasn't been issued for more than 15 years, and if you're under the age of 60, you don't need to do the exchange. Now, unfortunately, many people that are moving here are doing so for retirement, and they're 60 or over, so that doesn't apply. They still need to go through and do the exchange. But for several people that are under that age or don't have a driver's license been issued for 15 or more years, it's been a benefit, because it gets lost in a black hole. I just found somebody who messaged me the other day after my video and said it took them 9 months. They got their driver's license. So it happens. We've heard from people it's taken 1.5 years. I don't know anybody that's gotten a driver's license within a few months. It just doesn't happen. And I will say there are Portuguese people here that we met, locals, that have, when they want a driver's license, just getting it issued sometimes takes a long time. So be patient. You don't need a driver's license here. You can get around with Uber, Bolt, tram, train, bus. But if you are in a remote area and you like driving, you do need to have your license, and hopefully wherever you're coming from, it's still valid. All right, so that's the driver's license. It was a big pain point for everybody. Now it's no longer a pain point for some. Still a pain point if you're of a certain age and you still have to get it kind of transitioned and get it exchanged. It can still be a pain. Okay, so let's go to another pain point, passport control. As I mentioned, Seth, they're in charge. They're sort of, I'll call from the US perspective, Homeland Security, kind of TSA. So they handle passport control in and out of the country. They're also handling immigration concerns and issues. So coming into Portugal, if you're coming in from an EU country, you don't have to deal with them. You're in the EU, don't have to. But if you're coming from a non-EU country, you do have to go through passport control. We came from Morocco last weekend. It was a 10-minute wait. It was a night flight. It was easy. I will say this, and I hope you do remember this. If you happen to be flying into Portugal in the morning and your flight is anywhere from arriving from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., there's going to be a backlog. It can take up to an hour or an hour and a half in good circumstances to be able to get through passport control. And the reason I say that is there are several flights coming from non-EU countries landing in Lisbon and a couple living in Porto at the same time. So if you're coming in, you it's a numbers game. There aren't enough CEF agents taking the number of arrivals. So just be cautious with that. I would also, as a point, we try our best to go to the bathroom on the plane right before we land or go before we get in our queue, just because we've been caught in 4 to 5 hour lines. The thing about the immigration here, it's affected immigration, it's also impacted border and passport control, is CEF has gone on strike, and they go on strike fairly often. So it's the summertime mainly, but due to last 2 years of the pandemic and being understaffed, and because they're being transitioned to something else and they have to find other work, there have been more strikes. So it's just been more of a pain to get into Portugal than is necessary. Hopefully, again, when they transition from CEF to another agency, some of that will be alleviated. Time will tell, and we'll see on that. So hopefully when you get here, if you're in a morning flight, expect a longer delay to get your passport stamped than if it's a early morning or later in the day arrival. I hope that helps you. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is some of the daily bureaucracy or day-to-day things that you should be aware of when it comes to government agencies. And I'm going to throw banks in there as a government agency. Sometimes I know that I shouldn't, but we all need to use a bank. So just to let you know, banks generally open 8 to 8:30, close at 3, Monday through Friday. Our bank, we have a Millennium branch that we use, Millennium BCP. It's close to us. It is open from 8:30 to 3, Monday through Friday, with the exception of Wednesday. It closes at 1:30. So that's something that's unique. Most banks do have lunches, so there may be times where the bank is closed for lunch. Banks are not open on the weekends here, so that takes some adjustment, because I think in many countries, I'll say the US specifically, banks are open maybe later till 6 or 7 at night, open on the weekends, or you can find a bank branch in a grocery store. That just doesn't exist here. So if you want to do your banking, you have to do it Monday through Friday. I would recommend any opportunity you have to do electronic banking, meaning all of your statements for all of your utilities, your bank, whatever, try to sign up and get them through your email so you have less reason to need to use the bank. Of course, ATMs are open and available 24/7. It's just inside the bank, Monday through Friday, these particular hours. Government services, generally 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and an hour lunch. I've seen some 12 to 1, some 1 to 2 in there, give or take. If it's midday and you're looking to go, I would try to call or email ahead just to make sure that they're going to be open during that lunch hour. Not all places close during lunch, but we found that many have or do shut down during the lunch period. So that's something that just takes some getting used to. Oftentimes when you maybe come from a country that they're wide open and maybe even open on a Saturday, that's not going to happen here. So you have to make sure that your business gets done, your government business, Monday through Friday, or via email when you can do so. The one thing that is government run that is a pain point, I think, is the mail service. CTT is what it's called. If you are going to mail anything through them, I'm going to give you a situation, two situations that should strike home the point. First situation, our bank wanted something mailed as opposed to delivered in person. So we went to the CTT close by. It's a 5-minute walk, and mailed something on a Monday morning at 10 a.m. It arrived Friday afternoon, and it was a 2-kilometer distance between the post office and the bank branch that received it. So it took basically almost 5 business days to get there, 2 kilometers. A couple of weeks later, the bank needed more information, and they wanted something that was mailed so they could show kind of proof of receipt. And I asked, can I just deliver it in person? They said yes. So it took me 25 minutes to walk that same distance, 30 minutes, and I was able to deliver it without having to go through CTT. So that just shows you how slow the mail system is here in general. I would say this, please do not have any family or friend, as well-intentioned as it may be, send you anything for your birthday, holiday gifts, especially food, anything like that from a home country here. Now, with the exception of maybe Spain, that might not go through the same customs issues. But for example, we had people send us some holiday gifts. We didn't realize that they were sending it. And 6 weeks later, they're messaging going, hey, how come you didn't say thank you for the holiday gifts? What are you talking about? We didn't know about them. And 7 weeks later, so that was 6 weeks. So 1 week later, so the 7th week, we got letters from CTT saying there's stuff in customs. You have to tell us how much it's worth, what's in the container, yada, yada. And so we're going, okay, that must be what they sent us for holiday gifts. So we ended up filling out the information, paid customs and duty fees on the gifts that were being sent to us. And then in the 9th week, we received these things. So they were shipped middle of December. We got them the middle of around Valentine's Day. In fact, I think the week after Valentine's Day. So kind of the almost 2/3 of the way through February. So there were brownies that were moldy. There were cookies that were in no good shape. So where I'm going with that is the post office system. If you're mailing from U.S., Canada, the UK, mailing anything in here is not worth it. And oftentimes the receiver, meaning us, we will sometimes pay as much or more just to pay taxes and fees on it as you will have paid to buy the original gift to begin with. So I highly recommend never use the CT. And this is also for shipping stuff back to wherever your home country is. Don't use CTT. Use DHL, UPS, FedEx if it's legal documents or tax returns, something like that. Use those services. It'll get there in a day or two. Yes, you pay more, but you don't have to deal with the baloney. What we do for gifts for family and friends is we still have our Amazon account back in the US, or we'll buy Walmart, Target, you name it, Kohl's, to be able to get gifts to people as opposed to sending trinkets or souvenirs back. It's just not worth it. So thank you, Pedro 970. I apologize. I thought it was government run. So thank you for that clarification. I greatly appreciate that. Always good info and great comments from you. So thank you. So they've had a bit of a rough patch, and I would say that I don't use them unless we really need to. But there are a lot of people that have typical correspondence that go back and forth through CTT. I just would use other means if you need to mail anything. And quite frankly, depending on what you need, if you're doing things electronically, more people are, there isn't a need to use the post office in any country that you're coming from. I will say this, coming from the US, we rarely use the post office except around holiday time to ship stuff that we couldn't get from third-party vendors. So there's that. And then also the strikes here. There is something, and this is not bureaucracy. This is, I think, more to workers' rights and the ability to get paid more. there are a number of things that I think you need to realize if you're looking to move here. There are doctors, nurses, there are several different bankers, I just mentioned banks, several different agencies here that have gone out on strike since we've been here over a 3-year period. Much of it has to do with staffing, the amount of hours, and the amount of pay, some combination of that. There are many industries here that haven't received raises in a few years. Several people, if you can imagine, in the healthcare industry, the amount of extra, the hundreds or thousands of extra hours that staff have had to work under the strain and the conditions of the pandemic, many of them need a break. And that's something that I often focus on: airline strikes and airport staff strikes and train delays, not just in Portugal, but throughout Europe. But something here in Portugal is that you do have to realize that that is a way of life. And that's just, it's not, they're not doing anything negative to you. It is something that if you're coming, let's say, from the United States, you're not used to doctors or nurses or many people other than maybe automotive going out on strike. But it is something here, and it's really, it is for your benefit. They're trying to, they're very passionate about their work. They really want to do a good job. They also want to get paid for doing the good job. And it's something that Portugal's wages are very low, regardless of industry. Taxes are very high compared to the rest of Europe and much of the rest of the world. So that's something to be cautious, because I'm going to continue to do videos on strikes and delays and things like that. And as much as it's not government bureaucracy that is causing that, it is something that I just want to make sure that you're aware of, because if you're going to be here on a day-to-day basis, you're going to experience, if you're here for a year or more, some impact to your life, whether it be train, plane, healthcare sector, bank. Something will happen where there will be government, or there will, not all government agencies, but somebody's going to go on strike. And it's just what you have to work with, and you have to try to look at their, through their eyes and their understanding. They're just trying to make a better situation, not just for today, but for tomorrow. So be aware. It can be frustrating for some people when the airport's overloaded, passport control, and stuff's having issues, or you go to the bank and there's a strike that particular week. The hope is that it doesn't get exacerbated where more doctors and nurses look to go on strike. Hopefully, with the pandemic, they can hire more people and less people will be going to the doctor. So that area, to me, is more critical, making sure that there's no issues on that end as opposed to the other stuff. So that is, for me, much of the bureaucracy. As I can tell you from the top, it's not that bad. The driver's license thing was a pain, but they've remedied that in many cases. The post office has been one, but I will say if you don't use it, you're not impacted by it. So many people don't even use the post office, so you're not impacted by it at all. So let's see. So Dan, I appreciate comment again about South Africa. We have a couple of friends here that are going to be moving, and they've just started the process. So I'm curious, based upon what you just commented on, I'm going to reach out to them and just say, could they keep me in the loop on what's going on with the process there? Because that is something that when we've talked to people about the bureaucracy or some of the government processes here, the biggest thing that people have said from other countries, European countries, North American countries, African countries, yeah, the process here is nothing compared to the hoops and hurdles and steps that this particular or that particular government makes us go through. So if you just have a deep breath and just be mindful that things take time here, it's going to be a breeze for you, and you just take it in stride. Those of you that are retired, you're probably kind of in retirement or vacation mode anyway. You don't have to worry about it. XD, you ask a question. As far as the driver's license, I guess you have 2 years to exchange your driver's license without taking the written. So yeah, we were told 2 2 years, within that time frame, we could exchange it. When we were giving our SEF appointment, they were saying, well, no, it's 6 months. And then I pulled up information from the agency that handles driver's license. And I said, well, this says 2 years. So it looks like we have 2 years. The biggest issue with it is that in Portugal, when it comes to certified or apostille documents, after 6 months, they're no longer valid. So when I was getting my SEF appointment, I was worried because when we moved here versus my appointment, I was running along that 6-month mark to where marriage certificate, birth certificate, some of those things that I'm alive. It's not like every 6 months I turn into a new person, but what Portugal was requesting would no longer be valid. And I would have to go back and get some of those documentation again. And like my background check from the FBI was close to being 6 months or more. So in that particular case, I did actually have to contact the FBI, get another one sent because it was outside of the 6-month mark. But depending on country, you do have to look into that. And if you're in a country, if you're from a country that you don't have to do an exchange, if you have a valid license and you're under 60, it doesn't matter whether it's 6 months or 2 years. You just come and drive and not have to worry about it. I would say, please watch my video on that because I give the link to the article that shows which countries are a part of that program, and it's a vast majority of the countries out there. So this is it. This is my conversation about the bureaucracy. It's not as bad as one could think. In fact, it's quite easy. Once you have an understanding of how things work, it's a pretty straightforward process. And in some cases, not as bad as the US, in some cases, just as bad as the US as well as other countries. So as always, thank you so much for watching this live stream. I greatly appreciate it. Oh, I apologize. I'm going to hit Dan again. Yeah, I would love to be able to have a cold one someplace. We've got a Chimera brew pub. I'm going to do a video on that. It's only a few minutes from our apartment. They've got some good microbrew there, but would love to talk shop about anything. And for those of you that are subscribing, if you have any information for me, so for example, somebody a couple of videos ago said, hey buddy, your voice sounds like you're shot out of a barrel. So I'm using my earbuds for the next series of videos until I can get a proper microphone. If there are types of videos you want me to do or certain things you want me to react to, I will certainly do that. I do want to let people know too, I'm thinking about starting a subscription page, something that will probably be $4.95 or $5.99 a month, something of that nature, to where I'll customize videos specifically to individual requests and try to give some exclusive content. I'm still toying with that. I think I need to get better at the live streams before I go that route. But absolutely, please give me any information and any feedback, good or bad. If you want to rip me apart, I need all the constructive as well as destructive criticism that you want to give me. So I take all the comments that you give me and try to learn from them. So as always, thank you so much. And Berg, thank you. I'm hopeful that I've got it figured out. And just so you know, the iMovie setting 400% is as high as I can go. I will make sure it's at the maximum 400%. So regardless of what device you're listening, it's at the max setting right now, you should be able to hear me without any issue. So I'm just crossing my fingers I don't screw it up down the road. So thanks again for watching. And next live stream, I'm going to try to do in a week. I don't know what it's going to be. It's either going to be taxes in Portugal. I'm not an accountant, so I don't know if I can really talk to that. I might talk about family life, what it's like to be in another country and not have your family around, and some of the pros and cons of that. As always, thank you so much for sticking with me, and enjoy your travels.